Hello there, and as usual, I'm Aaron from Laststandgamers, and welcome. So today I want to introduce you to the new, absolutely crazy Mad Max style post-apocalyptic server. Now, as we're approaching this outpost here, let's go over what this server is all about. Now, if you're like me, you like a challenge, and you're always looking for different ways of engineering in Space Engineers. And between me and the rest of the community, we really haven't had a truly rover-based experience. When you can choose between a rover and a ship, you're always going to choose a ship. So, for this particular server, we've got rid of thrusters completely. Of course, we're still running our standard server with all the standard settings, but this one is something a little bit different. It's set in this desolate wasteland of just desert, limited resources, especially limited hydrogen. You can find everything else in specs and whatnot. But as we're touring through this place today, I'm going to show you some abandoned cities, some of the bases, and remember, this server's only been up for 24 hours, and because of that, players really haven't had too much time to begin construction. But in fact, we're in Howe's base here. Howe have just set themselves up with this little bunker, and straight away they've been telling me they've been having new engineering challenges. Since there's no ships, they've got to be able to get access with a rover with supplies, drills, welders to pretty much any location they can. So let's work our way back down the shaft. We'll have a look around this outpost. We'll take a look at some of the other outposts on the server, and we'll take a look at some of the landmarks as well. As you can see here, this piston extension thing looks seriously damn janky. How that's actually working, I do not know, but they've got themselves some wind power, and they've got this protection via the front gate. They've got two turrets on the inside, then they've got the piston gate there that's still requiring steel to complete. On top of that, they've got themselves some basic sort of defensive catwall that looks out across the wasteland. So if you've not got a jetpack, this base is quite formidable. You could try dropping in from a top, but to get up there would be difficult, number one, without a jetpack, and number two, landing, well, I don't think the ground would be your friend. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the landmark locations for this server. So the first landmark we're going to take a look at is one of the many wrecked ships across the planet. Now, the wrecked ships offer a good source of various supplies. This particular one has been stripped, and you can actually see that there is some players at it at the moment, maybe continuing to strip it out. One of them's inside the hull there. We'll take a look in a second, but these are a simple cargo ship from the workshop. I'll have a link down if you want to use it yourself, but they make a great little location for players to fight over of some of them really valuable scrap components. And all that really remains of this particular one is probably the hull on the outside. The chairs have been taken out, the cargo containers that are originally in the front have been removed. We've got a little player's sort of Mad Max style salvage rover here. He's nicely mossified it. He's got a battery on top, got himself a lot of cargo, so he looks like he's on a little bit of a stripping run. He's designed that little rover just to pick up all the supplies he can and bring it back to his outpost. So as we dip in here, this was originally filled with cargo containers and whatnot, and the rear area was an engine room, so they've really gone to town on this and taken it apart. Let's continue having a look. Let's head to one of the cities. 3, 2, 1. So now we're at one of the city locations, and you can notice that the whole surroundings have been bombarded by asteroids. Now, the reason for this is due to the grid size and a few settings that I've messed around with. So you can come into this area, you can loot some of the supplies, and I've been trying to refresh this area with supplies, random vehicles, different things as much as I possibly can. So at the current moment in time, we have a crashed plane that's crashed here into the side that was functional to a degree, and players decided to drive it into, well, a rock. And you can see the craters are really going to be causing some trouble here for drivers. It almost reminds me of the Holes location, to be fair, especially with some of these mounds that we built up. So you can see we've got some of the craters around down the side there, and if we have a look through this location, we might be able to find the odd car, the odd vehicle. There we go. Looks like we've got some sort of ATV there. The wheel, one of the wheels has been missing, but that could easily be stripped out, equipped up, and you've got yourself a quick little car to go when you're heading around the wasteland. But you can see there's some other wrecked buildings that are half sunken into the ground, and there is various supplies hidden around this location. The odd cargo container, the odd block. And as players come to visit these places, we've had some rather interesting fights too. Now, if we head out of this location, away over the ridge and across the mountain range, you can see that we've built roads into the whole of this map. Now, the idea and the reason behind these roads is because roads draw players together. A player will be instinctively sort of driven to follow a road, over just driving across the sand, and because of this it'll cause players to bump into each other. Now if we head up into this mountainous region here through this hollowed out terrain, you can see the road pretty rough up here. We actually head onto another little construction, a highway bridge. Now, when I develop this a little bit further, I'm going to add a little bit more detail into the ramp and a few other things, maybe even build a city below it. I'd love to hear your feedback, as usual, in the comment section of more locations I could add to this server. But you can see we've got a little road that goes underneath the bridge that leads around there, and then we have one that goes over the top. Now, my idea here was, as soon as it dips over, this bridge starts to fall apart and crumble away, and you can see as the voxels load in, there's some chips missing out of it, and then it's been consumed by the desert down here itself. So there's still a bit of work in process in some areas, but this is just a really fun area to try to navigate with your rover, and that's what I want with this particular server. I want an adventure. I want players to be able to experience this, travel to these various different locations. So as you can see, just coming over this section, we've actually got ourselves one of the very few ice lakes on here, so you can quickly nip in here, and just like some players already have, they can pull up with the rovers, grabs themselves some hydrogen, and they can head back off. And if you just look around, just how barren the location is. When you see a black car or any coloured car come over the horizon, for that fact, it's damn scary. And in fact, someone's left a trail of piston heads. Who's done this? But you can see that we've got this just weird landscape. It's just fun and creepy at the same time. Let's continue on. We're going to head to the airport. So we're now over at the airport location itself. Now this is another one of the monuments, and I always recommend to players that they don't build around the monuments or on them, because players will always find them. And in this case, it looks like some players have been building here. In fact, it looks like they've even tried to convert one of the airport terminals into a giant rover. I'm not sure if that's going to be successful or not, but it's certainly going to be a really strange creation. You can see that they've got themselves some of these windmills set up at the top. We've also got some other hangars down the runway. The runway has been obviously cratered by the incoming asteroid storms. But they've got this really weird looking banana type Mad Max ship here. We've got the wheels at the front. Maybe it's designed to cross terrain in various different difficulties. It'll definitely get you out of a hole, and you've got the two interior turrets up at the front here. So what I haven't been telling you is what sort of weapons are allowed on this server. And in fact, you can have standard Gatling guns, standard missile launchers, the reloadable variant, and interior turrets. Gatling turrets and missile turrets are disabled purely for the fact that I want players to think a little bit when they're aiming and have to build their own weaponry for their rovers and equipment. Here we go, we've got this thing moving, look at that. That looks like a proper sort of tank. It just needs one more wheel in the middle, and I reckon that would have some great off-road potential. We've also got these grabbers here on the front. I don't know if they're going to use this to pull the airport terminal out, but the airport terminal's definitely bristling with a few weapons. So if you head in here, let's have a quick look what's inside the terminal. We've got this lovely glass corridor, and now on the other side, this is where they've retrofitted it for their own personal use. They've even built themselves an ore detector in there. As we continue working our way through this area, it looks like they're doing a little bit of mining down this shaft here, using one of the drills on the piston. That's always risky business, but certainly down for fun. Anyway, what we'll do is we'll head to another location. Actually, we'll head to the Thunderdome. So the final location that I'm going to show you down this winding road is the Thunderdome. Now the idea of this location is a fully voxel created, so if we just actually wait a second, give it a second to load it in, you'll see that there's a skull up there. The skull has uranium in its eyes. I didn't tell you that, so don't be trying to get up there and pulling the uranium out of the eyes. But we've got these various different sculptures around here, and we've actually got ourselves a battle arena that is accessible by rovers from the rear down that tunnel there. So let's just give the game a second to catch up, because it's just loading in all the voxel assets. So you can see we've got this seating area, and hopefully we'll be able to have some events here, have some really nice rover battles within the dome itself or around the desert area. You've got skull and crossbones up there, and you've got the back of the dome, but it's just this really menacing type skull or location on the map. And a lot of the roads do lead to this particular location. On the other hand, talking about roads, there is a few that lead to dead ends, and there is a few that lead to some really quite nasty traps. So you've also got the good old road into a wall that I think is quite funny. I know this one's definitely a wizard in design, so you can see how that just goes straight into that, and that's it. but the majority of the roads that have been built always lead somewhere, or they lead in a loop so they can go around the whole entirety of the planet. More assets will be placed along the road, and of course if you guys have got any ideas for what to be placing along this road, I'd love to hear. Yes, BB's gas station is somewhere out there, but you're gonna have to find that one yourself, and there is another city or two, as well as a variety of other wrecks and crashes. Let's have a look at some player bases before we wrap this one up. So we've already seen 2 of the player bases. Now let's see a player base type Rover. And this sort of base is definitely going to be really interesting in the dynamics of the server, venturing across to various different wrecks, crash sites spaced out across the server, as well as being very useful because it has the interior auto turret. So these little turrets, as long as you keep them loaded with ammunition, and that's the thing to remember, can fend off small rovers quite easily, and especially men that are trying to assault this thing. The only issue is getting aboard quickly, maneuvering this thing in tight spaces, and just seeing how well a large rover like this can do across the terrain. The other problem that you might have is if you load this thing too heavy. We all know Space Engineers doesn't like super heavy rovers and might force it to go through the ground. So it's definitely going to be interesting. We'll see how this particular outpost continues on, if it survives the wasteland, that is. Anyway, let's continue on to one more outpost. So we're heading over to one final player outpost. Now there is many more outposts across the server, but as this has only been up for 24 hours, players really haven't had too much time to actually build things. So you can see they've got the start of this massive rover here. Now my only worry and concern about this would be this section. It doesn't have a lot of ground clearance, but apart from that, it's starting to take shape and it's looking pretty damn cool. They've also built this small little transport vehicle here. That looks really damn functional as well. You've got the wheels on there staggered to each of the sides. That's going to have a lot of clearance and just be able to get over various different obstacles. You can also see that they've got themselves a basic production yard set up, and they're not hiding, these guys. They're being pretty much in plain sight. If anyone comes over this area, they're going to see them from a mile away, and I don't see any turrets here at all. I really think they need to get some defenses up before it's too late for them. Anyway, let's wrap this video up here. So that's what we've got to offer on the Mad Max server. I invite you to get involved, join in the action, and if you love rovers, or you love how janky they are, get stuck in and have a go for yourself. Anyway, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.